Good afternoon, good morning. It is Sunday, May the 22nd. I am going to give it just a few minutes to see if I have anyone join. And then if not, I am going to get started with what I have prepared to present today. This is the What's Your Question session. And I am giving it a few minutes. I see a thumbs up for some folks to join. Thank you for the thumbs up. Good morning, good afternoon. I am waiting. Good morning from California. Hello, hello. Thank you for being up early, joining in Cali. Thank you all so much. Good morning from Seattle. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. It's early, your time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully we'll have some others join. I am starting this session. Good morning from DC. Good morning. I'll kick off my session with my introduction and then get started. This is the What's Your Question segment. And good morning or good afternoon, wherever, depending on your location. It is afternoon on my side of the world. And this is Miss Bohemian Soul TV. My name is Jewel Pearson. I thank you all for being here. This is the Creating Home, a tiny house series. And this segment, again, is What's Your Question? Every Sunday, I offer live content and then I alternate. Let me get my slide up here. I alternate between these conversations, the What's Your Question, and then the conversations on intimate spaces. To introduce myself, I built a kind of fancy tiny house in 2015. And since that time, I have shared my journey, hopefully to inspire others who are interested in the movement, by sharing my journey to hopefully help someone see that they can do this too. I do offer coaching, consultations, and workshops to help others in their tiny house journey, and I serve up a lot of representation in the movement along the way. So it is my intent with this work to build figurative and literal community that is inclusive and accessible. And I'm asking that if you find this information helpful, the video information, the information that I share, the content that I share, if you will please like it, share it, and also subscribe to the channel. And be sure to turn on the notifications so that you'll know when live content is available. So again, this is the What's Your Question segment. And today, thank you all. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. This afternoon, I am kind of interviewing myself, I guess. So what I'm going to do, I am just days away. I think it's 9 days, May 31st. 9 days away from 7 years in this movement. In 7 days away from no, 9 days away from 7 years in the tiny house movement and living in my tiny house. And so, what I want to kind of do is, happy to hear that. I'm going to talk about some of the changes I've made over the last year in my new location, changes to my space, changes to location, and then answer some of the questions that I get a lot about my house and the changes and the work that I've been doing, and hopefully answer some of the questions that you all might have in the comments. So I am going to share some pictures of the work that I've done to my space, my changed location, and then we'll get started talking. Thank you. Happy early anniversary. Thank you so much. I can't believe it's been 7 years. So let me change my screen and I am going to share some pictures. All right. So I think you should see the picture of my current location. I am currently in a small town about 45 minutes southeast of Charlotte. I have been here since I've started working on the house. My house was stored at this location from the previous location. I'm going to back up and talk about that. But I started working on the house in April, I think, of last year, April of 2021, and moved into it the end of May in 2021. So a year here, almost a year here in this location, 7 years in the tiny house. Prior to that location, I had been at another farm space, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. And then prior to that location, I had been in the city of Charlotte in someone's backyard. And I had been in that location for about 2.5 years. And I had kind of got caught in the city's eye as the neighborhood that I was living in is going through gentrification, code enforcement, and others are in and out of the community. And so they saw my tiny house in the backyard. And so of the home that I was in, they couldn't tell that it was on wheels. So they cited the homeowner to say that he had an accessory dwelling unit and that he needed to go through the permitting process, which of course I knew would mean that I'd have to share with them that the house was on wheels. It wouldn't be permitted on wheels. And so I did go through that process with them, worked with the city of Charlotte, I would say probably a little over 6 months to go back and forth with them. And this was my second go round with them to ask permission to have my house in the city. I thought I was making progress. We were, like I said, going through this for about 6 months. The people that had been meeting with, they had indicated that I would be able to go through what they called an alternate means and methods program, which is them considering my house as an ADU. They need to go through inspections. I had to hire an architect. They don't deal with, I guess, the regular homeowner in this process. So I had to hire an architect for them to deal with. And so the architect who finalized my tiny house drawings for me, I hired him again. And then I also had to have a structural engineer involved in the process. And so we're going through this process for 6 months. It wasn't cheap, again, a second time. And we were actually making what I felt was progress. And then right as we were getting to finalizing all of the information that they had required, they were also going to do an inspection of the house. The documentation went up the chain to someone higher up in code enforcement, and he shot all of it down without really even asking any questions, saying that the house was on wheels, which wasn't like a new discovery. They had known that. That's how the process got started. but it seemed like no one was willing to kind of challenge him, I guess is the best word, to say, yeah, we know it's on wheels. We are allowing her to go through this process, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of just shut all of the progress down, wasted the money again that I had spent to kind of go through this process. And so I moved my home. Someone asked me, one of the questions that I had earlier on my page was, did I think there was anything besides being permanently attached? Did I think there was anything that I could have done differently with the city of Charlotte? I would say no. Like, I had gone round and round with them again the second time that I'd gone with them. I really feel like at this point, Charlotte is the big city, and they are chasing big dollar projects, even though they have a very large houseless community that could benefit from tiny houses, even though they have an affordable housing crisis that could benefit from the use of tiny houses. It's not something that they're really interested in pursuing at this point, in my opinion. They are after the big dollar projects that can make them lots of money, and that's what's working for them. So I'm still doing the work, having conversations. I'm less focused on Charlotte right now and more focused on the area that I'm currently in, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. But as far as Charlotte, I just really don't think that they are interested in the conversations around tiny houses on wheels. You can have a tiny house on foundation in Charlotte. They don't have the minimum square footage requirement, so you can build on foundation, but they're not interested in having the conversations on wheels. And so, yes, Latasha, the question about whether being on wheels is the issue, absolutely. Where there are other cities, mostly on the West Coast, that are addressing the use of tiny houses on wheels as accessory dwelling units, Charlotte is not there. So that is, so I left the city of Charlotte, moved out of the city of Charlotte in August of 2019. I did move to another farm space prior to the current location. I was there just under a year. The plans that I had discussed with the person that was that farm was through a farm trust. The person who is managing that farm, we discussed prior to me moving out there. Thank you, Vilma. Hi, good morning. Some of his plans, and the plans just really weren't coming together per the timeline that we had talked about. So I was out there on that, I think it was like 10 acres by myself for about 9 months. And then there were some challenges with the local area, some racism, people coming on to the property during the day, during the night. And for me, it became an issue of safety. And eventually someone was arrested later on for racial intimidation. So I left that property. My house was stored on the at the current location while I was trying to figure out next steps. This is one of the reasons that I share my story, because my counterparts aren't having to deal with challenges. They're having to deal with challenges for placement of tiny houses, but they're not having to deal with the same challenges that I have, that are related to race and racism. And so that is one of the reasons that I share in the work that I'm doing, because that shouldn't be an additional factor that is impeding the progress for BIPOC people interested in the tiny house movement. So anyway, I am now on this location. It is, like I said, 45 minutes southeast of Charlotte. I am on a friend's farm. Someone asked, I think, about acreage. I don't, I, I'm not exactly sure how many acres this farm is. Again, it's not my property. I am renting the space where my home is located. I don't. I would probably say the space that I have is probably within this farm is probably less than a quarter of an acre, maybe a quarter of an acre. I'm not exactly sure. But again, it is not my property. It is a friend's property, and I have been here since, like I said, May of last year. As I talk through the changes that I have gone through with the house, I guess I'll start with saying that the additions that I've added to the house, they are on foundation. My tiny house, you can see my tiny house back here in the back. The space that you see, the sunroom space that I added, is on foundation. The sunroom space and the front porch, both are on foundation, and I was willing to go that route because I have no intentions of moving my house again. And I think I'm answering a question as I say that. I could move my house again by undoing all of that work that I just did, because my house is still on wheels, but I have no intentions of doing that. I have no intentions of moving my house again. There is a lot to be said about feeling safe. I feel completely safe in this location. It is much further out than I want to be. But again, there's something to be said around for safety. There has been a lot of opportunity. There is some missing, I guess, connection. Like they're not people in um, close proximity. I don't have friends and family in close proximity. My the property owner's family is nearby, um, but there's been a lot of aloneness. But within that aloneness, there's also been a lot of growth. There's a lot of beauty out here. There's a lot of connecting with what I would say is the world within what I would say is God's space, and that has been a beautiful experience for me. So, um, to answer that question, I don't intend to move my house again, and that's one of the big questions that I get oftentimes. So, I am going to step us through some of the work that I've done. Um, as I speak about the distance and where I am, most of my services, I still go into Charlotte for my services. There is a grocery store within like 3 miles. Interestingly enough, I still go like two little cities over to go to a Publix. I still go into Charlotte to go to the Whole Foods because what I have learned is that I know that that I can access better quality food in some of the grocery stores closer to the city, and that is disturbing to me. There are some stats, and I wrote them down. Stats that say 23.5 million Americans travel at least 1 mile in urban areas and 10 miles in rural areas for access to quality food. And I can speak to that. There is a grocery store, but in the area. But I know from experience that I have better access if I go, like I said, a couple of cities over, or go back into Charlotte to go to the Whole Foods, and so that's what I do. But for me, that's a trade-off for being able to be in my home and feel safe, and I'm willing to make that drive and to be here in my home. So, to talk about what I've done, so the time that in between the time that I had left my tiny house where I didn't feel safe in it, and I was trying to figure out my next steps at the previous farm location, for just probably about 3 or 4 months, my house was on Airbnb, and so when I moved out to this location, one of the things that prompted my tiny house remix, as I call it, is that I needed to get my space so that it was home again for me. I certainly appreciated the people who had stayed in my home through Airbnb. That had obviously helped me financially so that I was able to pay for my tiny house to still be on that farm location, and then for me to be somewhere else as I figured out my next steps. but it wasn't home for me anymore. So that is a lot of what prompted the tiny house remix. And so this is the current location, with adding on this additional, and I'm kind of giving you the tour so that, because I also have people who say they don't really understand how this new space connects to the tiny house. So if I go back, you can see my house is there on the back, and then this new space is kind of what I say a backward L on the tiny house. I've the sunroom space, and then I have a front porch space, which this picture is kind of outdated, which I'll show you in just a few minutes. I've actually screened in this front porch space now, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So coming into the house, if you're looking left, this is the entrance from the front door. To the left is my kitchen. Up overhead in this space is my bedroom, the loft, and so that is the bedroom. And then if you're looking to the right, that is the couch. If you're looking to the right, past the couch, there's the bathroom. Overhead, there is another loft space that I just generally use for my plants. It's a beautiful seating space that I do sometimes spend some time up there, but mostly just have plants and decor. My bathroom, and I'm going to talk about kind of my next project. So, my bathroom, I currently have the washer dryer combo unit in it, and I have a macerating toilet. And so, those two are part of some upcoming projects I have, but I have had this set up for the toilet I've had for about 6 years. 6.5 years, and then this washer dry combo I've had since I built the tiny house. I also have a tub in my bathroom, and so it's always one of the things that, as I talk to people about designing the tiny house, designing it for the things that you want and need in your home, and it's absolutely possible. So if we turn back to the right and head through the tiny house, that is my kitchen space. I opted not to include a stove in my kitchen. I share all the time that I can cook, but cooking isn't one of my favorite things to do. So I knew I didn't need a stove. I do have a convection oven. It's a microwave convection oven combo. And then I have the two burner cooktop. So I do have access to cook meals if and when I need to. But across from that is my walk-in closet. So I opted when I was designing my house to include a walk-in closet because I knew I didn't need the full kitchen that a lot of people have in their tiny house. And then if you're walking past the kitchen, as you're headed past the kitchen over to the right, initially I had a little desk. When I first built the house, I had a desk in this area, and I've since changed it so that is just additional counter space available in the kitchen. And so this is heading into that sunroom space. Hopefully this helps someone understand how the space is connected to the house. You can see this black wall is the side of the tiny house. And this was what was my side door from the tiny house that initially when I built the house. I did still have a small screened-in porch here. I expanded that at some point, and now it is complete. It has been expanded to this sunroom space. So you're exiting from the kitchen, entering this new sunroom space, and this is that space. My intention, since I don't plan to move my house again, was to take advantage of the opportunity I had here for space. I wanted to have my desk out full time, and so that was one of the plans for me to expand this space. And so I took full advantage of the opportunity to do so. And then let's see. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pay attention to the comments and also do the tour, and I'm failing miserably. So this is again, some of the sunroom space. And then you will see let's see, is this the last picture of the sunroom space? Nope. Okay. Last picture of the sunroom space. And then exiting out of this door, if you look out this door, you can see the front of the tiny house. So again, it's in a backward L, this sunroom space, the way it's connected to the tiny house. And once you exit out of this door, you are then on the front porch. And so, thank you. So this is the space that I have just most recently changed. And so with the sunroom space added to the tiny house, my house is now, I think it's 479 square feet. Um, some people say tiny houses on wheels aren't supposed to be larger than 400 square feet. Some say 500 square feet. I'm at 479. It's still a tiny house. I've had a couple of people that I've had to block who felt like they were in their feelings about the fact that I added on to my house. And so and that I should not, it sounded like they didn't feel like I should advocate for tiny houses anymore since I'd added on this space. But you all know how I feel about people and their opinions of what I do with my money and my space. So anyway, this was the front porch. Because I am in a rural area, there are some, and I have a small dog. Nina I think she just hit 8 pounds. um, there are in rural areas there are rural animals or wild animals. So I haven't seen the coyotes, but I hear them nightly, and it's a lot of them, and they make a lot of noise. There are big birds and all kinds of things out here that could impact Nina. um, and so I really couldn't enjoy this space, or she and I couldn't enjoy this space without her either being constantly on leash and within my eyesight. And so that wasn't really how I envisioned enjoying this space. So within the last few months, I have just screened in that front porch, and so these are a couple of pictures of screening in that front porch. The porch was not a new space. I just added the screen. It does not increase my square footage because it is not a heated space. When you increase square footage, it is about living space that you are going to be able to live in. I could not live on this front porch, so it is just um, another space that I am able to enjoy, but it is definitely not living space, and it didn't increase the square footage. So those are the updates that I've made to the house. Back over here on the left of this picture, you can see my baby. This is Baby Bohemian Soul. That is one of my to-do projects. He has patiently been waiting for, it might be 4 or 5 years now, for me to work on him so that we can travel. And every time that I get ready to say I'm working on it, it hasn't happened because other things have taken priority, but that is um, something that I intend to work on next. Also working on my front yard. That is one of the things. I am currently house sitting. Nina and I are house sitting and dog sitting, but when we go back home, we will be working on um, that front yard. And so this is the backyard. I have um, there are some, again, as I live in a tiny space, one of the things that I always, always, always try to do is add to a space and not detract from the space. So I always try to make sure that I am beautifying my space. And there are some other items out on the farm, and so I wanted to be able to give myself some privacy. And so this is some screening. I've forgotten the name of it that I've just I added initially last year and then had to go back just recently and work on the post again, because the wind out on this farm with nothing to break it prior to it hitting us or at the tiny house is kind of serious. And so I needed to go back in and concrete these posts. And so I have done that. And that is leading me to the next project, which you can see out of the window now, is a tiny shed that I've added out there. It is an 8x10 shed that you can see. And my next project, as I was talking about the bathroom, is I am going to make this this shed a laundry center. So I showed you the bathroom, and I have had a combo washer dryer unit for 7 years. It works just fine. It does take a longer time than the standard washer dryer unit. It also, you can wash with it, you can dry with it, you can go through the entire cycle, which again has been fine and has allowed me to not have to visit outside laundry facilities. But since I have the access to space, I have decided that I am creating a laundry center and am going to um, utilize a washer dryer stackable apartment sized unit. Just ease of use, for a lot of reasons. Just personal preference, I guess, is probably the main thing. And so that will be in this shed. I am also going to be purchasing a small freezer. One of the things that I did learn during quarantine and pandemic is to be able to have access to store food and other items should I need it. And I don't have the space for that in the tiny house. And so the 8x10 shed, and I also have a few things, that I need to store that I have in storage, so that I'm going to put in here. And so that is the project that I am currently working on. As I make these changes, one of the other things that I'm changing as I add this laundry center is I am planning to change out my toilet. So I have a macerating toilet, which is a self-contained unit. It does use water. It uses low water, a smaller amount of water than a regular toilet. I have it connected to two 275-gallon IBC tote tanks in the backyard that I have serviced every maybe 5 or 6 months. I think it's around 6 months or so. It might be even longer. By a company like a Sandy Can company that services porta potties. Um, and so what I am finding out is, because of the distance where I am, gas, all of those things, the cost for servicing those totes is going up and up. And it's not something that's really feasible to do. And also because I'm trying to consider options for swapping out my toilet. And what I am considering is something with less maintenance, and I am considering an incinerating toilet. And so I guess I'll put this plug out here for sponsors. Anyone that's interested in talking to me about toilets, I'm considering a composting toilet, incinerating toilet, and will be changing that out in my bathroom. And so once I decide on what I'm doing with the toilet, all at the same time, I will be taking my the washer dryer combo unit out of my bathroom. And so that is the next one of the next projects that I have. So the laundry center, figuring out what I'm doing with my toilet, and then after that, then I'm coming for baby B. Let me see if I have answered all of the questions that I have about my house. Hopefully the tour was helpful. I am continuing the conversations around tiny houses in the area where I am. I'm hoping to be way more successful. One of the things that a lot of people will say about rural areas are that they are land rich and cash poor. And I have found that they are more accommodating or more willing to have the conversations around tiny houses on wheels because they're kind of used to RVs and mobile homes in these areas, and they don't necessarily have the NIMBY mindset, the not in my backyard mindset that the big cities have. And so I will continue those conversations and hopefully make some impact change in this area, and then at some point maybe it then go transfers out, and Charlotte will give that some consideration. That is what kind of an update on the work that I'm doing there. Let's see. I think I've answered all of the questions that I know of about my house, like how do you get to that sunroom space? Where is the sunroom space? The square footage of my house? What the screened-in porch? What that update was about? Let me see. I think I've answered everything that I have. So let me see if there's some questions in the comments that I can answer. Oh, I see some people making some connections. All right, Karen asked, how much land does my space utilize? Acreage. I think I tried to answer that. I don't know exactly. I think it's probably less than a quarter of an acre. I really am trying to stay contained in my space. Even though I'm surrounded by a lot of space, I still want to be mindful of this isn't my space. And I don't need a lot of space. So I am just trying to be over in my corner and mind my business. Um, Here's a question. How much does it cost to work with an architect? So that cost is going to be dependent on the architect. They have their own price points that they charge. Some of them have packages, some of them charge by the hour. So it is going to be dependent on that architect. I did answer the question about for Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, whether being on wheels or tiny was a problem, and it was the wheels. Um, I think I'm just loving watching you expand your tiny home, but with the additions that are happening, which are beautiful, by the way, thank you so much. But would your home be more challenging moving on wheels? So yes, that, and I think I answered that. I have no intentions of moving my house again. It would definitely be more challenging moving on wheels. The additions that I added are not on wheels, and so they are on foundation. So I would have to undo all of that work to even attempt to move my house, and I don't intend to do that. So, which is why I made the decision to go that route in the first place, adding those. All right, thank you. Good morning from California. Yeah, food deserts, absolutely. That's what I was talking about when I was saying the access to quality food, the food deserts, and it's really shameful. It's sad. I do know a lot of people out here garden and grow their own food, and I recognize that, but they still should have access. There should still be better access to quality food in the grocery stores. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, Hello, hello. Life is about growth. It absolutely is. And it has been, this journey has been about growth. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's see. I'm interested in tiny home living and love the flexibility of having wheels and being mobile. Does it hurt to park your home for extended periods? How do you prep to move? No, it doesn't hurt to park your home for extended periods as long as um, my home is on a triple axle trailer. When I park it, I don't sit it directly on the wheels. I add blocking at the corners, also tie it down, which makes sense from a safety perspective. But I add blocking at the corners in the center of the trailer so that the house is not it adds stability for one thing, and then the house is not directly sitting on the wheels, which is so it doesn't lend itself to tire rot. So you need to have provide the ability, if you're going to be in a location, that you're not just sitting on the tires for tire rot. And then the second part of the question, and that's basically the only thing that I'm concerned about when I'm parking, to make sure I'm not negatively impacting my tires. How do you prep to move? So when I am moving, for the interior, anything that is going to move and slide around or potentially fall and break, I box it. I am able to put it. I put the boxes inside of the house. I put a lot of stuff inside the bathtub. Um, Things that I know are going to break as I'm moving them, I leave inside the house, and then and I'm taping cabinet doors and drawers and things so that those things aren't sliding open. Um, Another thing is, you're considering moving, is because you've been sitting in a location, you want to double check the weight of the house and make sure the weight of the house isn't too much for as far as the weight of your trailer. So if you've added a lot of things while you've been there, you want to, maybe take some things out and carry them. Because I have things on the outside, I usually will have a U-Haul trailer that accompanies a move, because I have outside things, and the outside things can't go inside the house because of bugs and things and dirt. So I might move some things outside of the house and put it in that U-Haul truck to reduce some of the weight of the house. I also ensure that, like my water that is moving through the house, I kind of drain the house to make sure that water that's in the house, in the piping, isn't adding additional weight. And I kind of think that's about um, the gist of what I do for a move. Uh, Thank you. My house is beautiful. I love what you're doing. Are you going to make a garden? It's kind of on my to-do list. I know nothing about outside gardening. I have plenty of interior plants, but I know nothing about outside gardens. And I'm also scared of snakes. So that kind of is the draw for me. But I have considered, I've seen some of those small greenhouses. And I mean very small. I don't very, very small. I need to start with just a couple of items and then go from there. But I do know that I needed to be inside something, so I'm not having to deal with snakes, because that's a negative for me. This question, I think I answered. You own the property your tiny house is on. I have a dog that needs to go potty. Hang on, Skipper, please. Just give me a minute. Um, you own the property your house is on. No, I don't. I am parking on a friend's farm, and so I am paying rent to park on property. I don't own the property. What is the estimated cost of your tiny home now? I remember you stated that initially it cost you 85,000 to have it built. I don't know. I haven't done that math, because as I have done this additional work, what I know is it has cost a whole lot more to do this additional work than my initial build, because of the supply chain issues, because of the increased cost of lumber, all of the things. So, for example, when I was building my tiny house, OSB at that time cost, I think it was $15. And as I was closing in the sunroom space, OSB was at $75 a panel. So I don't know what the cost. I haven't done the math to put it all together. Tiny houses, that $85,000 in 2015 when I built my tiny house, those tiny houses today are probably about 150,000 if I had to guesstimate. So just the way cost has changed, supplies, labor, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't have a final number. Um, Jacqueline, you're saying something about an RV fridge freezer. I don't know if that's a brand. I'm not sure what you're asking me. They sell grow bags at Amazon for garden, different sizes. You can place them next to the tiny house. that sounds like something I probably need to look into because it would be small. All right. Also, with your new and future additions, how much square footage has my home become? So with the addition of the sunroom space, which is the only space that you add to the increased square footage because it is heated livable space. It is my house. I think it is 479 square feet. Vilma is asking, I was wondering where you're getting your water from. So I get my utilities, water and power from existing structures on the property. So this farm is on well water. I get the well water off of one of the barn buildings that's next to the home, and I also get my electricity off of one of the structures. Thank you. I have been following you from the beginning, your television debut of Tiny Living. Thank you so much. I love your updates. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elsie. Thank you. Thank you. Here is a question. In your travels, what have you found about neighboring states? I'm in Gaston, North Carolina. So, the way the rules for tiny houses, and again, I'm speaking to tiny houses on wheels. The way the rules work, it is not by state, it is by city, it is by county. So you have to deal directly with the city or the county to understand what the rules are. Again, rural areas are going to be the most accommodating for tiny houses. Not always the safest spaces for Black people, people of color. So that's one of the things that you have to take into account. But it is going to vary. There are absolutely tiny house communities in some of these areas. I have the cooperative community initiative that I'm working on to pair tiny house people with Black farmers. I talk about that in my video, Tiny House Luxury Living. And I will share the resources for the information, the areas that I'm aware of in the description of this video. Here's a question. What would you suggest for a family of 5 adults? Any design suggestions? Really, I would say going through the same process that anyone else would, paying attention to how you all use your space currently, what your must-haves are for a family of 5, and really documenting that, starting with the list of what your must-haves are, what your nice-to-haves are, and what your wish list is going to be. I do talk about that a lot in the design video, which I think it might be episode 3 of the What's Your Question, but understanding and documenting how you all use your space and then designing from there to make sure that you're accommodating the things that you have to have for your family of 5. It's absolutely doable. I don't know what the ages of your children are, but there are families who are living in RVs and tiny houses and making it work because that's their priority. So it's doable. All right, you all are about to hear WrestleMania kick off as Skipper is the dog that I'm sitting, and Nina, my dog, they're back there. WrestleMania is kicking off. So if you all hear them, just know what's happening. You are doing a great job explaining to us about it. Tiny House, I love your videos. Thank you so much. That is the part of what I want to do to help share information, again, add some representation within the movement. I did a presentation earlier this week talking about the opportunity for tiny houses for BIPOC communities. And there was a study done in 2019 that said the tiny house community was 92.5% Caucasian. And so these conversations, the conversations that I'm having, the concerns that I share for people of color within the movement, Black people, this is, what is it, the 7.5%. I am trying to represent for the 7.5% so that we can grow our participation and interest in this movement. Here's a question. Hi, Jewel, where are you with starting your own community and what can we do to help you? I am trying to have conversations in the local area about the potential for tiny house community, and it is slow going. Um, but I'm not giving up. And so the things that can be done to help, when I was initially I was presenting to the local officials, and had kind of put out a call for people who could come and attend, because the more that they see that others are interested, and it's not just Jewel over in the tiny house who's pushing the tiny house agenda. As they can see that other people are interested in the movement, then they see that this is of real interest to the community. And so I put those calls out. If you follow me on social media, you can get connected within those calls. Um, Kind of I guess sharing the videos, sharing the conversations, so that people understand that this is a viable option for affordable housing. It is a viable option for living. It is a viable option for houselessness. It is not just weird people who live in small spaces that are pushing, a weird agenda, but helping people understand the why behind it, and the real people within the movement are some of the things that are helpful. Um, are you still working with cooperative communities, and how is that going? I have some land in Memphis, Tennessee that was open for tiny home parking. I am still doing that. I share the information. I'll share that information here in the video. The challenge is getting the time for on the as my resources grow with people who have property that are open to having tiny houses park on it. It is getting the people to build the tiny houses. And so that is the thing. And there's so many challenges around that from a financial perspective, that part of it is slow as well. So it is just kind of a waiting process. But I thank you for being available and sharing your property. And I'm hoping that the cooperative communities is helpful to everyone involved. How do you tie, here's a question. How do you tie down, I know that's supposed to be tie. How do you tie down a structure that is built to move? So if you Google mobile homes, it is really just a process of putting stakes. Yes, I knew you meant tie. Putting stakes in the ground, in concrete in the ground, and you tie with, when I say tie, there are steel, metal, attachments, for lack of a better word, that are connected to my trailer, the foundation of my house, the trailer, different parts of the foundation, with these things. And they are actually used for mobile homes. I purchased them from a mobile home manufacturer. And you connect them to the house at certain points. So I think it's 6 of them. The two corners, there, one on each corner, so that's 4, and then 2 in the center, and they are in concrete in the ground. And that is the tie down of a tiny house to help. Obviously, if it's a tornado, or a big catastrophic tornado or hurricane or something like that, nobody's safe, even large houses, and so I would seek other shelter. But for minor things, and my house doesn't even move with minor winds. Like, I think we had 50-mile-per-hour winds. My house doesn't move. Like, that would be a deal breaker for me if I felt my house moving during things like that. But that is just an additional safety precaution. And one of the things that we've offered in conversations with the city and working with structural engineers as an option to show that tiny houses can also be safe in urban areas. Let us see. Oh, Jacqueline is saying, good brand. I need to go back to your comment. I know you had a comment about the freezer, I believe. How about a solar setup for more self-sustainability? Absolutely. That has always been on my to-do list. My power setup would be a simple add to my current power setup to go to a solar model. There's cost involved with solar, and it just hasn't ever been within my realm of to do, because I always have something else to do. But it is something that I want to be able to look in at some point, to have a different means of sustaining the power from my house. I've also been interested in the oh my God, there's a a battery. Elon Musk, whatever his company is, there's a battery that will power your home, and that's also been an interest of mine. Um, so yes, that is like kind of on the to have a backup power. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I appreciate that. Um, oh, thank you, Valencia. Thank you for saying yes to your dreams. Thank you so much. Um, Michelle, thank you so much. Let's see. I think this is my last question. We've got like 5 minutes, so I'm checking on questions. So here's a question. How much space is needed for a tiny home on wheels? If I have land, how much would I have to provide for rent, and what type of utilities would I have to provide? That varies, and if you look at the information as I share it in the description here around the cooperative communities, that is going to vary by the tiny house size, by the tiny house owner. Obviously, I am on a larger property and have taken advantage of this space. When I've been in smaller properties, that is, I've not done any of this, and I've had much smaller spaces and still been fine on those properties. So space needed is going to be defined by your location, how many houses you want to put on there. I mean, if you consider RV parks and the space that people have for RV parks, then it's not a lot of space. So it just depends on how you want to divide up your property. It's going to depend on the sizes of the houses. There's no set answer for that. And then to answer the second part of your question around the type of utilities, that also is going to vary, because some people are going to need power and water. Some tiny houses are running off of solar. Some tiny houses have their own water storage, and they're working from rain catchment. So it is going to vary. There are a lot of tiny house people who are tied to the grid and will need the power and the water. For the most part, unless there is already sewage on the property, most tiny house people know not to expect access to sewage, and they'll have a composting toilet or a means to take care of that themselves. So the main utilities would be to have access to power and to water. Are there any Black-owned businesses of architecture? Absolutely. There are lots of Black architects. The architect that I work with, Robert, and I can share his contact information at some point if you're interested. You could email me. He is also Black. Tesla, yes. So yes, there are lots of Black-owned architects. I don't know Black-owned tiny house builders. That is something that is on my to-do list to keep trying to pull together, to find people who could Black builders. And this is one of the things that, as I say that, people outside of the community get in their feelings. Why are you worried about a Black builder? I don't have time for those conversations. It is about representation. It is about but that is something that I'm working on. Tesla, absolutely. It is a Tesla. Thank you. I lost my word. There is a battery that a couple of tiny houses have used from Tesla for a battery, in addition to, instead of having electric power, and this battery will power a house. LC, I was looking for a firm in the East Coast. Robert, my architect is on the East Coast. I can share his information. Or I think there's actually like a Black architect organization that you can Google and find. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. Shirley Griffin, good morning. I have no questions. I have lived in a tiny home in Kettle Falls, Washington in the early 1990s. Be well. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think that I have answered all of the questions that I have seen. Thank you for allowing me to share my tiny house journey with you all. Thank you for showing up for these sessions. I appreciate you all so much. And again, if you find this video helpful, let me change to my slide so I get this right. If you find this video helpful, I would ask that you share the video so that others can take advantage of the content. I also ask that you like it, share it, subscribe to my channel, and then also turn on some notifications so that you'll know when I am sharing content here. Again, this is the What's Your Question segment of the Creating Home, a Tiny House series, where I answer frequently asked questions and share tips to help someone in or on their tiny house journey. Thank you so much. And then the second part of what I offer with this segment is the conversations on intimate spaces, and those are the interviews with people in and around the tiny house movement. There's some growling going on over there. I had to see what's happening. And so I am interviewing someone that is doing something within the tiny house movement, something around the tiny house movement, something that we can relate to the tiny house movement. And I share those conversations in the conversations on intimate spaces. So I thank you all again for joining and spending time on your Sundays, and hope that everyone has a great afternoon and a safe afternoon, and you all take care.